Hey, my name's David Thomas. I'm 26, and I've been grinding away at this mid-sized financial firm in downtown Seattle for the past 2 years. It's not the most glamorous job, mostly crunching numbers, preparing reports, and chasing deadlines that always seem to sneak up on you. But I like it well enough. It pays the bills for my tiny one-bedroom apartment in the suburbs, where I live alone. No roommates, no pets, just me and a stack of takeout menus. I don't go out much. Most nights, it's Netflix or scrolling through my phone until I crash. I've always been the type to keep my head down, work hard, and hope someone notices. Proving myself, that's my thing. The person I admire most at work is my direct boss, Olivia Carter. She's 45, but she carries herself like someone who's seen it all and come out sharper for it. She's the regional executive director, always in perfectly tailored suits, her dark hair pinned up neatly, and those piercing blue eyes that seem to cut right through any excuse. Everyone respects her, maybe fears her a little too. She's cold, efficient, doesn't waste time on small talk. I've heard rumors she's single, lives in some fancy penthouse up in Capitol Hill, but no one really knows her personal life. She doesn't let anyone in. I've always been a bit intimidated by her, but I also look up to her. She's the kind of leader who demands excellence, and I've pushed myself harder just to meet her standards. It was a Friday evening right before the holidays. The office was decked out with cheap string lights and a sad plastic tree in the lobby, but the festive vibe didn't do much to lighten the mood. We had a major quarterly presentation due Monday, and I'd volunteered to stay late to polish the slides. Everyone else had bolted by 7 p.m., heading out for drinks or home to their families. Me? I was buried in spreadsheets, the glow from my monitor the only light in the cubicle farm. The building felt eerie when it emptied out, dim hallways, the hum of the HVAC system fading into silence. Around 9:30, I finally hit save, grabbed my backpack, and headed for the elevators on the 15th floor. The hallway lights were already on motion sensors, flickering on as I walked. I pressed the down button, rubbing my eyes, thinking about the leftover pizza waiting in my fridge. The doors slid open with a soft ding, and I stepped in, pressing the lobby button. Just as the doors started to close, I heard quick footsteps. A hand shot out, stopping them, Olivia. She stepped in, clutching her laptop bag, her coat draped over one arm. She looked tired, lines around her eyes that I hadn't noticed before, but still composed, her posture straight as ever. "Evening, David," she said, nodding curtly as the door shut. "Evening, Miss Carter," I replied, shifting to the side to give her space. We weren't exactly chatty. Our interactions were mostly about work emails or quick check-ins during meetings. The elevator hummed as it started descending, the floor numbers ticking down on the panel. 14, 13, 12. Then, between 10 and 11, there was a jolt. The car lurched, the lights flickered wildly, and everything stopped. The emergency brake kicked in with a grinding noise, and the cabin went pitch black for a second before the dim backup lights buzzed on. My heart jumped. Claustrophobia wasn't my thing, but being stuck in a metal box wasn't ideal either. "Damn," Olivia muttered, pulling out her phone. She pressed the emergency button on the panel. A crackly voice came through the speaker. "Building security, what's the issue?" "We're stuck in elevator B between floors 10 and 11, she said, calm as if this happened every day. "Power outage?" There was a pause, some muffled talking on the other end. "Yeah, looks like a grid failure in the area. Maintenance is on it, but it could be an hour, maybe more. You folks okay in there?" "We're fine," she replied, though I caught a slight edge in her voice. "Just keep us updated." The line clicked off. I checked my phone, no signal bars flickering, but at least the battery was full. The air felt stuffy already. The ventilation must have cut out with the power. "Well, this is fun," I said, trying to lighten the mood with a weak smile. "First time I've been stuck in one of these." Olivia leaned against the wall, crossing her arms. "Not my first rodeo, but it's never pleasant." She glanced at her watch, then back at me. "You were working on the Q4 deck, right? Hope you got it done." "Yeah, just wrapped it up. Sent it to your inbox." Small talk felt forced, but it was better than silence. We stood there, the minutes dragging. I shifted my weight, staring at the floor while she scrolled through her phone. Probably emails, though the signal was spotty. The temperature started rising subtly, or maybe it was just nerves. 10 minutes in, and the awkwardness was palpable. No one prepares you for being trapped with your boss in a tiny space. She sighed quietly, adjusting her bag. I noticed her fidgeting a bit, but chalked it up to frustration. "They said an hour?" I asked, just to say something. "At least." Her reply was clipped. We fell back into quiet, the only sounds our breathing, and the faint creak of the cables outside. I leaned against the opposite wall, wondering how much longer this would last and hoping it wouldn't turn into one of those nightmare stories you hear about. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of something way more unexpected. The minutes stretched on, feeling like hours in that confined space. The backup lights cast a sickly yellow glow over everything, making the elevator feel even smaller. I could hear Olivia's breathing, steady at first, but then it started to quicken. She shifted her weight from one foot to the other, her laptop bag clutched tightly against her side. I pretended to check my phone again, even though the signal was dead, just to give her some privacy in this awkward limbo. Another 5 minutes ticked by. She let out a soft sigh, and when I glanced up, I saw her pressing a hand to her stomach, her face tightening. "You okay?" I asked quietly, not wanting to pry but sensing something was off. She hesitated, her eyes flicking to the floor. "I'm fine," she said, but her voice lacked its usual confidence. She leaned back against the wall, crossing her arms tighter, but the fidgeting didn't stop. She paced the tiny area, 2 steps one way, 2 steps back, her heels clicking softly on the floor. Sweat beaded on her forehead, and she wiped it away with the back of her hand. I started to worry. Maybe she was claustrophobic or having a panic attack. "Ms. Carter, if you need anything—" "David," she interrupted, her voice low and strained. She stopped moving, her hand still on her abdomen. "This is embarrassing. I really need to use the restroom. I didn't think— I had that extra coffee earlier and now—" Her words trailed off and she looked away, her cheeks flushing under the dim light. "Oh." My face heated up instantly. I hadn't even considered that. Stuck here, no facilities, no escape, it was every person's nightmare. "Oh, yeah, that's rough," I stammered, not knowing what else to say. "They said an hour, right? Maybe it'll be sooner." She shook her head, her composure cracking. "I don't think I can wait that long. God, this is mortifying." She pressed her lips together, her eyes glistening slightly. I'd never seen her like this. Olivia Carter, the unflappable boss who commanded boardrooms, reduced to this vulnerable state. It humanized her in a way I wasn't prepared for. I racked my brain for a solution. There was nothing, no bucket, no corner, that offered real privacy, but I couldn't just stand there and watch her suffer. "Look, if it's that bad, I have my jacket. You could use it to—" "Shield yourself. I'll turn around, face the wall. I promise I won't look or say anything. No one has to know." She stared at me, her eyes wide with a mix of horror and gratitude. "You'd do that? It's so unprofessional. I'm your boss, for God's sake." "It's a human thing," I said, shrugging off my jacket and handing it to her. "We've all been there. Better than suffering, right?" I turned my back, facing the opposite wall, my hands in my pockets. "Just tell me when you're done." There was a long pause, then a quiet, "Okay." I heard her moving behind me, the rustle of fabric, her shallow breaths. The sound that followed was unmistakable, a soft trickle echoing in the silence. I squeezed my eyes shut, focusing on my own breathing, trying to block it out. It wasn't judgment, it was just empathy. No one should have to go through that alone, especially not someone like her. It didn't take long. "Done," she whispered, her voice shaky. I heard her zipping up, then the crinkle of something, probably tissues from her bag. She must have stashed the evidence in a discreet pouch or something. I waited a few more seconds before turning back, keeping my expression neutral. She was sitting on the floor now, knees drawn up, her face buried in her hands. Her shoulders trembled slightly. "I can't believe that just happened," she muttered. "In front of you, of all people. I'm so sorry." "Hey, no apologies needed," I said, sliding down to sit beside her. Not too close, but close enough to offer comfort. I pulled out a pack of tissues from my backpack and handed her one. "Seriously, it's okay. These things happen." Remember that time the power went out during the all-hands meeting last year? Everyone panicked over less. She took the tissue, dabbing at her eyes. It's not just that. I hate feeling out of control. I've built my whole career on being the one who has it together. And now, this? A tear slipped down her cheek and she wiped it away quickly, but more followed. It was like the dam had broken, not just from the embarrassment, but from something deeper. I nodded, letting her talk. I get it. I feel that way at work sometimes too, like if I show any weakness, I'll be seen as incompetent. But honestly, seeing you like this, it doesn't make me think less of you. If anything, it makes you more real. We're all just people, right? Even bosses. She looked up at me then, her eyes red-rimmed but searching. You really mean that? You're not just saying it to make me feel better? I mean it, I said softly. I've admired how strong you are, but strength isn't about never breaking. It's about getting through the breaks. She let out a shaky laugh, wiping her face. You're wiser than you look, David. Thank you for everything. The air between us shifted, from tense awkwardness to a tentative understanding. We sat there in the dim light, the silence now companionable rather than oppressive. For the first time, she wasn't just my boss, she was Olivia, a person with her own burdens. And in that moment, I felt a strange connection forming, one I never could have predicted. We sat there on the cold floor of the elevator, the dim emergency lights casting long shadows across the walls. Olivia's tears had slowed, but her face was still flushed, a mix of embarrassment and relief. She clutched the tissue I'd given her, twisting it in her hands like it was the only thing grounding her. I didn't push, I just waited, letting the silence settle between us. After what felt like an eternity, she took a deep breath and looked up at me, her eyes searching mine. You know, David, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. I've spent my whole career building walls, being the one who never cracks, never shows weakness. It's what got me here, to this position, this office. But tonight, tonight I feel like those walls just crumbled in the most humiliating way possible. I nodded, leaning my head back against the wall. I get it. Maybe not on your level, but I do. At work, I'm always the guy fixing things behind the scenes, making sure everything runs smooth so no one notices the glitches. But deep down, I'm terrified of being seen as inadequate. Like if I mess up once, that's all anyone will remember. She tilted her head, studying me. You're one of the most reliable people on the team. I noticed that. The late nights, the extra effort on reports. Why do you think I keep assigning you key tasks? Her words caught me off guard. Really? I always figured it was just because I'm the one who doesn't complain. A small smile tugged at her lips, the first genuine one I'd seen from her. No, it's because you're thorough, you care. Not everyone does. She paused, wiping her eyes again. But tell me more. Why the fear? You seem so put together. I hesitated, but something about the confined space, the shared vulnerability, made it easier to open up. Grew up in a small town outside Seattle, Everett actually. My parents divorced when I was 12 and it was messy. Dad left, Mom worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. I learned early on to not be a burden, to handle things myself. In college, I majored in finance because it was practical, not because I loved it. Landed this job right after graduation, and now, I don't know, I feel like I'm just going through the motions, proving I'm worth keeping around. Olivia's expression softened. That sounds lonely. I can relate more than you know. She shifted closer, our shoulders almost touching now. I wasn't always this executive. Grew up in a working-class family in Tacoma. My dad was a mechanic, Mom a teacher. They pushed me to aim high, so I did. Scholarships, late night studying, climbing the ladder one rung at a time. But along the way, I sacrificed everything else. Relationships, friends, even hobbies. I used to paint, landscapes mostly. Haven't touched a brush in years. Painting? That's cool, I said, genuinely surprised. Why stop? She shrugged. Time, priorities. And after my last relationship ended badly a few years ago, I just focused on work. It's safer that way. No one can hurt you if you don't let them in. Her voice cracked a little on that last part and she looked away, but not before I saw the pain in her eyes. We fell quiet for a moment, the weight of our confessions hanging in the air. Then, impulsively, I chuckled. You know, if someone had told me this morning that I'd be stuck in an elevator with you, spilling my guts, I'd have laughed them off. She laughed too, a real warm sound that echoed off the walls. Me too. And after what just happened? I thought I'd die of embarrassment. But talking to you, it's strangely freeing. Like for once, I don't have to be Olivia Carter, the boss. I can just be me. Same here, I admitted. You're not as scary as everyone thinks. You're human. Our eyes met, and for the first time, there was no hierarchy, no professional barrier. Just two people connecting in the unlikeliest of places. We talked more. About favorite books. She loved thrillers, I preferred sci-fi. Hidden talents. I played guitar badly, she could cook Italian from scratch. And even dreams we'd shelved. Hers was traveling to Italy someday. Mine was starting a small consulting side gig. The conversation flowed easily, the stuffiness of the elevator forgotten. About 45 minutes in, the speaker crackled to life. Hey folks, maintenance here. Power's coming back online. We'll have you out in about 10 minutes. Relief washed over me, but mixed with a strange reluctance. Olivia straightened up, smoothing her skirt. Well, that's good news. But her tone held a hint of something else. Regret, maybe. Yeah, I agreed, standing and helping her up. She gathered her things, discreetly tucking the small bag with the evidence into her purse. We brushed ourselves off, the moment of intimacy fading as reality crept back in. As the elevator jolted to life, the lights flickering on fully, she turned to me. David, thank you for everything, and for keeping this between us. I smiled. Of course, our secret. The doors opened to the lobby, cool air rushing in. We stepped out, the building's night guard nodding at us apologetically. But as we walked toward the exit, side by side, I felt like something had shifted irrevocably. The next morning, I dragged myself into the office feeling like I'd barely slept. The events in the elevator replayed in my mind, the jolt, the darkness, Olivia's vulnerability, our unexpected conversation. I half expected things to be awkward, like we'd crossed some invisible line and couldn't go back. But when I logged in and checked my emails, there was one from her. David, great work on the Q4 deck. Let's discuss at the team meeting today. Professional as ever, no mention of last night. The meeting was in the conference room on the 10th floor, ironically the same level where we'd been stuck. Olivia walked in last, her suit impeccable, coffee in hand, commanding the room like nothing had happened. She ran through the agenda, then paused when we got to project assignments. David, I'm putting you as deputy lead on the Henderson account. You've shown initiative. I think you're ready. The room went quiet. A few colleagues exchanged glances, me, the junior analyst, jumping to deputy. I felt my face heat up, but nodded. Thank you, Ms. Carter. I won't let you down. She gave me a brief smile, one that lingered just a second longer than usual before moving on. After the meeting, as everyone filed out, she caught my eye and mouthed, Lunch? I spent the morning buried in files, my mind racing. Was this a reward, a test, or something more? By noon, I met her in the lobby and we walked to a nearby cafe. Nothing fancy, just sandwiches and coffee. We sat at a corner table away from the office crowd. About last night, she started, stirring her latte. I meant what I said. Thank you. It meant a lot. No need to thank me, I replied. I'm just glad we're out of there. We both chuckled, the tension easing. From there, the conversation flowed like it had in the elevator. She asked about my weekend plans, none really, and I mentioned my dream of opening a small coffee shop someday, something cozy where people could unwind. That's ambitious, she said, her eyes lighting up. I grew up poor in Tacoma. My family could barely afford rent. I worked 3 jobs through college, never had time for dreams like that. Her openness surprised me. Sounds tough. What kept you going? Stubbornness, she admitted with a wry smile, and a fear of failing. But now, I wonder if I missed out on the simple things. We talked for over an hour, longer than a standard lunch. When we got back, she texted me later. Thanks for the chat. Made my day better. That was the start. Over the next few weeks, our interactions shifted subtly. She'd assigned me more responsibilities, but with guidance, emails with tips, quick check-ins in her office. Colleagues started whispering, "David's the new favorite." I ignored it, focusing on the work. But outside the office, things deepened. A text here. "Rough day, coffee after?" A shared ride home when it rained. One evening, we ended up at a quiet bar near the office, nursing drinks after a late project wrap. "You know, I've never really talked to anyone at work like this," she confessed, swirling her wine. "It's refreshing." "Me neither," I said. "You're not what I expected. Tough, yes, but kind too." She laughed softly. "Kind? That's new. Most see me as the ice queen." We shared stories, her about a failed engagement in her 30s that left her guarded, me about my parents' divorce and how it made me wary of getting close. By the end of the night, as we walked to our cars, she paused. "David, you're easy to talk to. Don't change that." A month later, we had a business trip to Portland for a client meeting. The day went smoothly, presentations nailed, deals inked. But on the way back, a massive storm hit, grounding flights and turning roads into rivers. We ended up stuck at the client's office, waiting it out. "No point risking it," she said. "We can work from here." As the rain pounded the windows, we ordered takeout and set up in a conference room. Pizza arrived soggy, but we laughed about it. "This reminds me of college all-nighters," I said. She nodded, wiping sauce from her fingers. "Me too, though mine were usually alone in a library." We talked late into the night, about books, travel wishes. She wanted to see the Grand Canyon. I dreamed of Europe. When the food was gone, we cleaned up together, standing side by side at the sink in the break room. The storm raged outside, but inside, it felt calm. As I dried the last plate, she turned to me, her expression serious. "David, if you were in my position, older, in charge, with everything to lose, would you risk a connection that everyone might judge? Something unconventional?" My heart skipped. I set the towel down, meeting her gaze. If that person made me feel seen, truly seen, for the first time in years, yeah, I'd risk it. Life's too short not to. She stepped closer, her hand brushing mine. "You're right, it is." We didn't kiss, not then. But the air between us crackled with possibility. The rain eased eventually and we drove back separately, but that night marked a turning point. Our secret from the elevator had evolved into something shared, a quiet bond growing stronger. Olivia smiled more at work. I felt more confident, tackling projects with new energy. We hadn't labeled it yet, but we both knew this wasn't just professional anymore. It was real. The weeks after our Portland trip blurred into a rhythm that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Olivia and I didn't rush to define what we had. We just let it grow. At work, we'd steal glances during meetings, our shared secret from the elevator now layered with something deeper. She'd text me late at night. "Can't sleep. Thinking about our talk." I'd reply with something simple like, "Me too. Coffee tomorrow?" And just like that, we'd meet before the office opened, sipping lattes in her car, talking about everything and nothing. But the whispers started. Colleagues noticed the extra assignments I got, the way she'd linger at my desk a second longer. "David's climbing fast," one guy muttered in the break room. Another joked, "Must be nice having the boss's ear." I brushed it off, but it gnawed at me. Olivia felt it too. "Let them talk," she said one evening as we walked through a rainy Seattle park, umbrellas bumping. "We've earned this." The company holiday party was the tipping point. It was held in a swanky ballroom downtown, fairy lights strung across the ceiling, a live band playing jazz standards. Everyone was there, execs, juniors, even some clients. I arrived solo, in my best suit, nerves jangling. Olivia was already mingling, stunning in a deep red dress that hugged her figure, her hair down for once. She caught my eye across the room and smiled, that private, knowing smile we'd developed. As the night wore on, the open bar loosened tongues. I overheard snippets. "Have you seen how close they are? Age difference much? Bet he's after a promotion." It stung, but I kept my cool, chatting with a few team members. Then the band struck up a slow song, and the dance floor filled. I was nursing a drink at the bar when Olivia appeared beside me. Dance with me, she asked, her hand extended. My heart pounded. Here? In front of everyone? She leaned in, her voice low. Why not? I'm tired of hiding. I took her hand and we stepped onto the floor. The room seemed quiet, eyes turning our way. We swayed to the music, her head resting lightly on my shoulder. Whispers rippled through the crowd, but she didn't pull away. Instead, she looked up at me, her eyes shining. Thank you for staying with me that night, she said softly, loud enough for those nearby to hear, for seeing me when I needed it most. I squeezed her hand, my voice a whisper just for her. You've given me the courage to be real with myself. I wouldn't trade that for anything. The song ended, and for a beat the room was silent. Then applause broke out, not sarcastic but genuine, a few cheers even. Our CFO raised his glass. About time. Laughter followed, and just like that, the tension dissolved. People approached us later, some curious, others supportive. Didn't see that coming, one colleague said, clapping me on the back. Olivia handled it gracefully. Life surprises you sometimes. After that night, everything changed, and yet it didn't. At work, we kept things professional, but the secret was out. No more whispers, instead, quiet respect. Olivia promoted me officially, but everyone knew it was earned. Outside the office, we built something solid. Weekends became ours, hikes in the Cascades where she'd sketch wildflowers, rediscovering her old passion for painting. I'd play guitar for her in my apartment, simple tunes that made her laugh. We cooked together in her penthouse, turning her sterile kitchen into a warm space filled with the smell of pasta sauce and garlic bread. One evening months later, we were back at the office late, wrapping up a project. As we headed to the elevator, the same one from that fateful night, she hit the button for the lobby. Remember? She asked, a teasing smile on her lips. How could I forget? I replied, pulling her close as the doors shut. Floor 10 still gives me flashbacks. She laughed, but her eyes turned serious. That night, it could have broken me. But you turned it into something else. A beginning. I kissed her forehead. Our secret weapon. The elevator dinged open without incident, and we stepped out hand in hand. No more hiding. We moved in together that spring, her place with its stunning views of the Sound. I added my touches, a guitar in the corner, bookshelves for her sketches. We hosted a small dinner for close colleagues, toasting to new chapters. Life wasn't perfect. There were still late nights at work, occasional judgments from outsiders about our age gap, but we faced them together. Now, whenever we pass that elevator on the 10th floor, she squeezes my hand and whispers, "Don't you dare spill our secret or I'll trap you in there again." I'd grin back. Promise. As long as you're with me. That elevator secret became our inside joke, a symbol of how vulnerability led to strength. It bridged the gap between boss and employee, age and experience, turning what could have been a disaster into the foundation of our love. We healed each other, not dramatically, but quietly, day by day. And in the end, our home wasn't just a penthouse anymore. It was a place filled with light, laughter, and the kind of understanding that makes everything brighter.